Hello YouTube. I've made several predictions already on several time periods in the future in several videos that I have recently posted, including one on a few years from now in 2030, a 3-part miniseries over what 2040 will be like, and now I'm going to cover 2050. It is mind-boggling considering that we are closer to 2050 now than the year 2000. It is time to start thinking about what the halfway point of the 21st century is going to throw at us. We can't even predict what will happen tomorrow, so predictions years and decades in the future are highly speculative. However, in this video, I decided to cover what will happen if things, for the most part, go well over the next few decades if we make decisions that are in the best interest of humanity, basically. This video will be like a Carl Sagan pipe dream, while the video that will succeed this one will focus on a more dystopian future if we succumb to our worst instincts. Now let's go cover some topics, shall we? Let's start out far out in space. In the late 2020s into the early 2030s, NASA will prioritize establishing a permanent presence on the moon, then spend the 2030s preparing a mission to land on Mars by the end of that decade. I think the 2040s will be spent experimenting, researching, and partaking in asteroid mining. The US will have a bigger commercial stake on the moon. By 2050, several private public enterprises will have invested in multiple lunar mining projects. These companies will be sending tons of raw materials back to the Earth. Investors will be shocked at the profits that start to emerge from these ventures in the 2040s. Whether these materials come from the moon or an asteroid, the presence of these materials will challenge mining companies on Earth. The US may potentially be able to gain access to raw materials and rare earth minerals that it wouldn't otherwise be able to if it was just limited to terrestrial mining. This will give the country much leverage in international negotiations regarding trading raw materials. The introduction of raw materials from outer space into international raw material trades may upend markets. The Hubble Space Telescope was revolutionary in the 1990s. Its successor, the James Webb, was revolutionary for its time in 2021, and I think the next revolutionary telescope will be built on the moon, far enough from Earth to not worry about light pollution, but close enough to receive repairs and more sophisticated engineering work. Europe, India, and several other countries will have lunar bases. Dozens of other countries will be invested in other beginner lunar missions. Billionaires and multi-millionaires will be able to invest in days or weeks long lunar excursions. First, they will have to participate in a months-long space testing and training program to ensure that they can handle a trip to space and to the moon. However, the moon tourism trade will grow in popularity throughout the 2040s. While there are currently just the International Space Station and the Chinese space station Tiangong, there will be multiple space stations in orbit run by multiple governments and corporations. Each will serve a primary purpose than just the one-size-fits-all models currently in orbit. There will be some stations dedicated to research, others dedicated to low Earth space tourism, and others will be dedicated to government or military projects, and while others will be the training grounds for future astronauts that want to work on the moon or even Mars. Governments and organizations around the globe will be investing in more projects that send exploratory rovers to the inner planet and the moons of the outer planets. There has been little interest in the moons of Uranus and Neptune. I expect an upcoming and ambitious organization or country may take up the challenge of sending a probe to the outer planets in the 2040s. The world will start to receive images and data from currently scheduled missions like the Europa Clipper and the the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer in the late 2030s. The world will need to re-examine its prior space agreements concerning government, military, and commercial activities in space. The current agreements and treaties in place simply don't take into account all of the advancements in space technology. People all over will undoubtedly benefit from the unforeseen technologies produced from these space missions. Humanity will become an interplanetary species by 2050 with a semi-permanent presence on Mars, asteroid mining, and more aggressive exploration of the entire solar system. Hopefully, most countries will put their differences aside and focus on developing mutually beneficial partnerships that advance the entirety of humanity. When it comes to conflict and warfare, I think drone and robotics warfare will become too costly and dangerous to pursue in a continuous arms race. Therefore, most countries will pursue a policy of mutually assured destruction and refrain from conflict. There is the other side of the coin where historians will point out that inventors and engineers of the past made the same claims about the weapons they created, just to be proven wrong when humanity just continued down the path of self-destructive war. The biggest examples that come to mind are the machine gun and the atom bomb. However, this is a scenario that will be covered in my next video where everything goes wrong. In this video, we will assume that drones and robotics will lead to a tense but peaceful world. Immigration restrictions and issues will be a thing of the past, as most first world countries will adopt virtual passports and more lax immigration policy, as well as finalize agreements amongst economic and political blocs to streamline immigration and make the process more efficient. There will be a decrease in nationalism. However, there will be a rise in regionalism. Individuals and political movements won't be focused on protecting the identity of one specific country. They will be focused on promoting and advancing the interests of the region or regional bloc it is a part of. They will do this by working with nearby partners to ensure all sides are on the same page. There will be conversations during future UN General Assembly meetings about how the globe can help the African continent and other underprivileged areas keep up with the rest of the world as they adopt AI technology and the change in lifestyle that comes with it. We will be having political arguments in first world countries about what is the right amount of aid to give to a program like this. The AI transformation will have worked its way through the global economy, transforming the macroeconomic situation of every country on Earth. Transportation, manufacturing, and warehousing will have been mostly automated by now. The question will be what jobs are left, not which ones will be automated. I think 33% of the US population will be unemployed in January 2050. We will yearn for the days of single-digit unemployment. Universal basic income will be commonplace in some form amongst most countries by 2050. It will be standard for national governments to have a UBI administration. It won't be an experimental program anymore. While automation and robotics was just completing the labor transition in 2040, it will be solidified in 2050. We will see governments at various levels of authority adopt AI into their governing bodies around the world. We already have seen a city in Brazil adopt ordinances written by AI agents. By 2030, we will see the first regional governments, your states and provinces, or whatever your country happens to call them, adopt legislation that was written by AI. By the late 2030s, we will see the first regional capitals and large cities also implement AI written legislation. By this I mean cities like New York, Mexico City, Tokyo, Jakarta. In 2040, we will witness the first national governments announce laws written by AI. In 2050, don't be surprised if you run afoul of a law written by AI. We will speak more about the island nation of Tuvalu later in this video, but they will become the first fully digitized country by 2050. I don't know what that necessarily means. I plan on covering it perhaps in a future video. Like, are you going to be able to go online and be able to open up a virtual reality version of their country and explore it? Is it like the metaverse? I'm not sure, but it is a legitimate program that the Tuvaluan government is actively pursuing. Look it up if you don't believe me. The climate is going to noticeably change by 2050. In my previous videos covering my previous decades, I painted a picture of what I think the Southwest will experience. In this video, I'm going to focus a little bit more on our brothers and sisters in the coastal cities. By 2050, we will have blown past the 1.5 degree threshold set by the 2015 Paris Climate Accords. Instead, we will be flirting with 2 degrees of average global warming since pre-industrial times. This increase in global temperatures will have had a thawing effect on our polar ice caps. By 2050, it is estimated that global sea levels will rise by 1 foot. Many parts of the US coast may even see a few more inches. The most vulnerable states are in the southeast, especially Florida and Louisiana. Residents near the coast will do 3 things in the future. 1. Those that can afford it will relocate inland. 2. Those that can also afford it or are lucky enough to live in a community that has sufficient resources, they will adopt, either slightly move inland, reinforce or build new shorelines, seawalls, levees, pumps, and dams, build houses that will accommodate high sea levels and high winds. In extreme cases, communities may transform into cities like Venice, or a more American example, Coral Gables, Florida. Residents will trade their vehicles in for boats. Streets will turn into canals. Life will revolve around moving around on boats and living near the water. The third group will be the survivors, those who can't afford to relocate or adapt, or can't do those things for other reasons. Or they are the stubborn folk. My family has lived on this land for 6 generations and I'm not leaving. Those type of people. People who simply will refuse to move and adapt to a changing world. Hopefully, government and society will keep the number of people in this third group at a minimum. However, we will see the first country on Earth have to mass relocate because of climate change. The UN is warning that the Pacific island nation of Tuvalu will become the first country to become submerged by 2050. And now, that doesn't mean that it will necessarily become permanently submerged underwater, the entire territory, but the territory will become virtually uninhabitable due to high tides and flooding that comes from frequent storms. It will make it impossible to rebuild. It will ruin any of the freshwater resources on the island. Discussing an entire island, picking up their bags and moving is going to be a major discussion this century. Hopefully, government and society will keep the number of people in this third group at a minimum. However, we will see the first country on Earth have to mass relocate because of climate change. The UN is warning that the Pacific island nation of Tuvalu will become the first country to become submerged by 2050. Not necessarily permanently submerged, but virtually uninhabitable due to high tides and flooding from frequent storms. Other island nations will also face similar existential threats from shoreline erosion and sea level rise. There is already a climate migration deal between Tuvalu and Australia. The good news, if you want to call it that, is that they're not expected to go down without a fight. It's projected that their country will achieve 100% renewable energy status by the year 2035 by their own government's projections. Scientists are also predicting that the Atlantic Meridional Oceanic Current will weaken in the next few decades. If you don't know what the hell that is, don't worry, you're not alone. To briefly cover, the AMOC is a large oceanic current in the Atlantic. It helps bring warm water from the equator up to northern Europe. This in turn keeps temperatures mild in Europe and has an effect on other climate systems in the entirety of the Atlantic. Researchers are expecting the currents to collapse to occur in 2 stages. We will be mostly through phase 1 by 2050. So right now in 2026, you might be wondering, what the hell is the AMOC? Why am I talking about it at all? However, by 2050, the preservation and the integrity of this current will be a top priority for the global community. And I know that most of this just explained wasn't good news. However, despite the best possible outcomes, I think we are still heading towards a future of climate change and chaos. It's just a matter of how bad it will be and how humanity reacts. In this video, our worst fears aren't realized. Climate change will just be catastrophic, not apocalyptic. And we assume humanity starts to get more serious about prevention and adaptation. Medicine is going to witness major advances and breakthroughs over the next couple decades. Reconstruction surgeries will become more common, more sophisticated, and more effective. They won't seem like an out-of-reach procedure that is experimental. Instead of prosthetics, missing limbs, eyes, and facial tissues will be replaced once a suitable donor is found. The ability to find a donor will be reconstruction surgery's limit, and not the fact that the surgery itself would seem too impractical. It will be interesting to see what the obesity rate in the United States is in 2050. Since the revolutionary breakthrough of weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, and I wonder what attitudes towards weight loss will be in 25 years now that we have such a readily available medical option. Related to global warming, the Antarctic Treaty will be reviewed in 2049. I expect several nations to argue that due to changing climate conditions, countries should be allowed to pursue commercial ventures and benefit from any natural resources hidden within their respective parts of the continent. Out of all the countries to possess Antarctic territory, I think Chile will have the most legitimate claim. The South American country is in possession of the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the northernmost land on the continent. In the southern hemisphere, that would make it the warmest land on the continent. The region just recently set a record of 70 degrees for Antarctica, so perhaps with an increase in global temperatures coupled with a recent increase in interest for energy and mineral exploration, Chile can develop the peninsula in the future for more people to live. The region can serve as a vital point for air travel, shipping, defense, and research. Our children will know of a thawing Antarctica that is coming to life, compared with the frozen hell that we know today. Music is one of those topics where it is difficult to make predictions about where the industry is going to be headed in the future. However, I think 2 storylines will be relevant. First, there will be a rise in the use of different rhythms, different instruments, and different languages from different parts of the world in various songs that we will listen to in the future. Well, for example, I think we will have more Spanglish music that incorporates both English and Spanish. And second is, whether we like it or not, I think AI is going to have an influence on the music industry. I think the first song that will incorporate at least a part of AI into its song will hit the #1 charts by 2027. And I think a full song by AI will crack the Billboard Top 40 by 2030, if it will ever become a #1 overall hit. I'm not so sure about that, but I think a new genre of music, AI music, will emerge in the next few years. When we look back on the first half of the 21st century, Who do you think will be remembered as the most influential people, and what events do you think will be the most consequential? 9/11, the Great Recession, the coronavirus pandemic, the rise of the internet, and the current energy crisis and the Iran war probably will be viewed as the most important events. We also gotta consider the fact that there may be deeply historical unforeseen events in the 2030s and 40s. And that goes along with my next question as well, of who will be the most influential people. I think it will be individuals like Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, and Xi Jinping of China. They will probably be viewed as the individuals who had the biggest impact on the events of the first half of the 21st century. Individuals who grew up and came of age during the 20th century, but helped craft the destiny of their countries and the world at large for the first half of the 21st century. 2050 will be a different planet than what we have grown accustomed to. What predictions do you think I got right, and what predictions do you think are far-fetched? Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.